Okay, good morning. Yeah, you should have just kept on with your presentation because it was very, very interesting. And one thing I'd like to just give a shout out to ABT, what you have, all the information that you have together in this room today is all that you're ever going to need to develop any kind of community that you need to have developed. Now, that might be a pretty broad statement, but we have people that have spent years in doing projects. I think with a number of the people that have given their story, I think you can develop anything that needs to be developed. So for those of you in Mexico, even if you're in the mountains of Copper Canyon, someone will come up with a bright idea for you. As the men were sitting up here, I was like, just turn them loose. Like, they'll figure it out. Like, they'll get everything that you need. And then we have SALT, and we have Open Hands, the savings. They're starting right down in the basement. You know, they're laying the foundation, getting people. And we're kind of ASALH is kind of the new one on the block. But like, there is now an organization that's willing to take people from a small business all the way to large if you care to go there. We might not recommend you to go to a very large business, but even just a doable family business is a huge blessing. So if you're here today and you have any doubts that you have an issue developing some kind of community development program, then your faith is awfully small. Because for everything I heard here, you should be able to develop most anything, that all the way from using a stone to make methane, all the way to vision that has a very, very good plan. I really enjoyed that last presentation of some of the unique things of how to relate with other religions, like other faiths, like he said. So, there is a way to do a great deal of things if you just keep on doing a little bit at a time. And looking back across the last 9 years that we had spent in Paraguay, looking back, it's like, no wonder I feel tired. But at the moment, it was just fun. The mission board came down one time, they said, Roman, we think you're having too much fun down here. And I was like, I am. I'm really enjoying it. See, at one of the meetings when we were talking about sustainability, there was one old fella at the meeting. I wasn't at the meeting, but they told me later, when we were having this sustainability subject again, that worn out word of sustainability. And he was a little sarcastic, and he said, oh, he don't know why we need to talk about sustainability. He said, we have two groups of people that have an itch that needs to be scratched. He said, we have a lot of rich businessmen up here that got a lot of money to give away, and they need a place to give it to. And we have a number of people that are willing to spend it for them. Why sustainability? Like, just let the rich hand it out. And I was thinking, I was one of them. I was totally fine going on the mission field and spending everybody else's money. I mean, what easier job is there to do? They hand the money in, and I put it out the back door. I had a very interesting experience. I had a German importer somehow, and of course, this is one of those God moments again. Somehow he found me. He lived in Germany. He got his wife in Paraguay, and I was in one of the most back sticks of Paraguay, living in between two marijuana-raising villages. We were the village that wasn't doing the marijuana, but we were famously known all over Paraguay to be one of the largest marijuana-raising communities. We even had the government helicopter land just down from our house with a whole marijuana cutting crew that you come in, you cut the marijuana down, and you dump diesel fuel And guess what green marijuana with diesel fuel looks like when it's burning? It looks like all of Sodom and Gomorrah is on fire. And we had people that had, when they heard the government helicopter come, guess where they went to? Well, you go over to the missionary's house because nobody gets arrested at the missionary's house. So we're out in the back fence, leaning on the fence, watching their marijuana fields burning up because they felt safe there. Later, they told us when we first moved in there, they came 3 times to assault us, and it never worked out. It's one of those God moments. We were there 9 years, and it never worked out for them. Now, that's not the case for everyone. If you don't want to get anything done, then just continually resolve that you're going to do it all. You'll never get anything done. So I put together a PDF, and I did this back 10 years ago. I think it was 2011. If any of you have interest, I have like 20 articles, and I don't have any skills in English. In fact, I didn't know English till I was 10 years old, I was in 3rd grade in High German school, and I had to go back all the way to the beginning of 2nd grade because I didn't know any English. So my English is poor, and I don't know but anyways, I put these articles together, all the fun things that I had to do. If you'd like to have this, just email me. On the back of my email is roman@aslusa.com, and I'll send you this because we don't have any time. We don't have near time to go through because I'm just going to look at 2 articles because I'd like to have just a little bit of discussion. So it's just a whole bunch of things that I had put together. Some are rather humorous, and I might share some of that today as well. So we'll just go through the slideshow here fairly quickly because I have some questions that I would like to ask the group here, because we have the basic knowledge here of developing in reality, any community in the world that needs development. So when we got to this community, first thing we needed to do is get rid of the stumps. So we got rid of the stumps. In the background, you can see a great pile. This was the last anchor that I had to get out. So how do you eat elephant? One bite at a time. We got to this community, and they had cut the jungle down, hadn't taken the stumps out, but there's always a lot of softwood, so the original stumps, they kind of rot out, but then you have these other plants that grow, and they begin to have trunks, but they're just a little plant on top of the ground. So these fields were absolutely not, you couldn't farm them, so we spent days and hours pulling all these little stumps out, because I was going to do this project all the way from A to Z. So that's what the field looks like after all the stumps are out. You can actually plow it. So we needed plows. We had lived with the Russian Germans, so I had known that in the 40s, Souders Furniture out of Archibald, Ohio, had sent a sea container down with at least 100 one-bottom plows for the Russian Mennonites when they had come over from Russia. And so I knew there was a lot of one-bottom plows available. So I told the local, let's just go over and visit them. Maybe someone will donate. We ended up with 8 of those. What's that green that's plowing down? That's a cover crop. So after we got the stumps out, so I had this 100 by 100 meters where the mission house was on. So I cleaned all the stumps off myself so that I could show them how to dig out stumps. I mean, you would have surely thought a native knows how to dig out stumps, right? But I decided I was going to do the work myself. So I cleared that hole, then I planted a cover crop. We got the one-bottom plow, and so they use oxen. So the neighbor man, he had a pair of young oxen. These are just new oxen. The soil is really sandy. Worked real well. So I wanted to make sure that the project was exactly a perfect glove fit for the community. So this, obviously, you're already beginning to see this is going to be a total failure. The weather was right. The soil was right. They chose the crop. They chose the peanut crop for the experiment. We had everything perfect. And if that isn't a sure sign for a failure. So there we are. We're plowing in cover crop. We had a local man made us a little disc. Ironic thing is, they really liked the disc. They did not like the plow, and so they didn't use the plow. If you don't like something, you don't use it, right? That's a good Anabaptist way. If you don't like something, if you don't like the church you're in, well, you just boot it out and go get another church. That's how we do, right? If we don't like something, we don't do it. Well, guess what? These people are the same. If they don't like something, they don't do it. They liked the disc, but they did not like the plow. Well, guess what? How much cover crop can you put in with the disc? How can you work up the soil? Then we put a 3-row planter together that they could pull with the oxen. Now remember, we're doing this right. We even made a 1-row planter. We had a man that had a great big old tractor planter that had the fertilizer part had rusted out, but all of the planter things worked real well, and it took basically very little, and this whole project basically took very, very little money. There you can see the 3-row planter. So the oxen had swayed a little bit there, so they got a little bit far away from one side. And so that's why I took the picture, because it showed if the 3 rows were planted together, it made the perfect, because we spaced it just right. Okay? So I'm giving them all of the correct information. And so obviously when the oxen went over a little bit, it got a little bit of a space there and it wasn't covered. And over here was the same thing. But it was everything that they could do. In other words, it wasn't any technology that was hard to come by or wasn't available. We just, you could pick up old planters at a lot of the farm places. Peanuts grow on sandy soil, amazing. You can have sandy soil, it looks like it wouldn't grow anything. Peanuts work real good. Peanuts, right after rain and sandy soil, you can just pull it out by hand. The interesting thing, they never asked for a machine to take the peanuts out of the ground. It was too easy just to pick the plant up, pick it up, and turn it over. It was more bother to try to invent a machine that cuts the peanuts off and rolls them over for a pair of oxen, so they were all content. No need to make any invention. So I'm an inventor by trade. Okay, I don't invent anything new. I just try to downsize it and make it applicable to the local community. So, who likes to pick peanuts off a plant? And there was no way we could afford a thrash machine. Those are $50,000, $60,000 machine. So we went and looked at a regular thrash machine. This should be pretty simple. It just has a big auger in it and has some teeth on it that rattles it around and knocks the peanuts off and out the back. Well, that's pretty easy. So I drew a little picture. I gave it to my Mennonite friend, and he slapped that together for pretty low price, and it worked great. Has 6 bearings on it. 2 bearings on the big auger that knocks the peanuts off. 2 bearings on the blower that blows all the leaves and the straw away from the peanuts, and then a shaker at the bottom that takes the peanuts up while the leaves in them are blowing off. Very simple, worked great. There they're hauling the peanuts on their ox cart. And as you could tell, there was some nice cleared land on both sides of the ox cart. One day we went fishing to a friend of ours. He had a fish pond, and we were fishing, and we were talking about our peanut project. What else would you talk about, right? So what are you doing? Where are you at? Well, we're doing this peanut project. Hey, he said, I have a little hand-cranked peanut sheller that I brought over when our family migrated over from Brazil. And I said, oh, well, that would be interesting to see. So he goes all the way in the back of the barn, has the thing all covered in cobwebs and everything, and he drags out this little peanut sheller. And I take that little peanut sheller home, and I'm like totally amazed. I put some peanuts in, turn the crank, and the peanuts just shell out nice. It doesn't break up the peanuts. And I'm like, wow. How could technology, who would have been smart enough to invent something like this years ago, and nobody is using it? So I looked up the company. No, it's been discontinued a long time ago. Why do you think they discontinued it? Nobody wants to use it. We have lots of technology from the old days that just simply went down the tube. So I went to another Mennonite friend and said, hey, how much can you make these for? He looked at it a little bit, $150 each, he said. I was like, wow, that's pretty cheap. I'd a whole lot rather crank a peanut shelling machine than pick them off shell the peanuts. And because two things about peanuts is if you have to pick it off the plant, that's one peanut at a time, right? Okay, it's a little bit like the boy that was walking along the shore and was throwing these little things that had washed on the shore, and there was thousands of them, and he was throwing in one at a time, and the old man came along. I'm sure you have all heard that story over and over. That's a grand old story preachers like to use all the time. Makes difference for this one. However, when you're picking peanuts off a plant, one peanut at a time is very discouraging. So that little machine that we put together to just knock it off, well, in an hour's time, you could knock off a whole week's worth of peanuts that a family would have to do. So the idea is just bring in enough technology so that we can make this thing efficient. So this little machine, I didn't know how long this thing would last or how well it would work, but we shelled tons and tons and tons of peanuts with this little machine, and we hooked two of them together. We really got brilliant. We hooked two of them together, put a little slow motor on it, and that thing worked for years. The bearings didn't even wear out. Like, there is no touching parts on that thing. And it was just like one of those things that had to be God, like, talking at the right time. Like, it's stranger than fiction how we found that little machine. Guess what? A couple of months ago, I took two of them to Guatemala because they still haven't figured out how to shell peanuts. Well, after peanuts are shelled, you have to sort them. And then we made peanut butter by the barrel loads. We put it in 4-quart buckets and just sold them. People like peanut butter. I took some of the shells and just made a little rocket stove, which all this was is just a 6-inch pipe with a hole in the bottom, and I put a plastic pipe, packed it full of peanut shells, and probably very few people in the world know that peanut shells are almost like natural gas. This thing burned just a little pile of peanut shells. After it was dark and a long time later, I came back, and it was still had a big blue flame coming out of it. And so I had high hopes that we would have a cook stove. Well, guess what? It's a whole lot easier to go out and cut a tree down than it is to plant peanuts and save your peanut shells. After all, I don't have to plant the tree, and I don't have to worry, because if I depend on peanut shells, then I have to plant peanuts. And if I run out of peanuts, then how am I going to run my stove? Because my stove is going to be set up to burn peanut shells, right? Never mind that you just raise peanuts every year and you have plenty of peanut shells. So it's a lot easier just to go buy a tank of gas and cook all of your food, because it's too much effort to save peanut shells. Then we took it one level further. I decided with this project, I'm going to take a local group that has no affiliation with the church, and I'm going to charge them with making peanut oil from the peanuts. So we got this little machine in from China that presses peanuts, and they all agreed to do this for us. That's how the peanuts look after it comes out. It's paper-thin shells. But I'd like to share just a little story, The Man in the Red. If you read the articles, he was the one that had the rat resort. I don't know if any of you have read that. He was a very interesting fella. He is one of them that had the most faith in it. So we did sunflowers. So we got the machine, and I told them, okay, for the first round, we're going to get sunflowers, and we had peanuts in the area. We'll provide the peanuts and the sunflower for the first year. After that, there was 10 men in that group. They had spent 10 years, they had formed a co-op. They had spent 10 years having meetings and had never done one project in that 10 years. I'm hoping that not after 10 years of these meetings, we haven't gotten anything done. So after the first year, so the next year he planted sunflowers, but the neighbor, the man that had a corn sheller worked to knock sunflowers out. So that was broke down. So he just stored all of his sunflowers in the other room of his house. And because he was waiting, he was too lazy to just take a stick. Like if you have a dried sunflower head, just take a stick and beat the seeds out. That's all you need to do. But he was too lazy to do that, so he just stuffed them, just filled up a bunch of gunny sacks with just the whole head of the sunflower in it, stacked them all in the one room of his house, and he was going to wait till the machine gets fixed. Well, the machine didn't get fixed, and pretty soon a rat found out that there was sunflowers in the house, and pretty soon another rat found out, and pretty soon he had so many rats in his house that the rats decided to move him out. Well, he decided that he ain't having none of it. The rats are not moving him out. He is going to move out the rats, so he went to check with the neighbor man. Sure enough, he had his old corn sheller fixed, so he said, come over, we want to thrash these sunflowers and get out of it. Well, he claims that they killed over 100 rats. And all the while I'm thinking, now what are you going to do with this? Now if there was 100 rats in there, now they all need to use the restroom at some time or another. Like surely you're not thinking about using these seeds, are you? I mean, you can imagine how much rat urine and excrement was over all that sunflower. He said, nope, I'm going to take them over to the press and I'm going to press out the oil. And he did. And he got right around 100 liters, which is about a half a 55 drum of sunflower oil. And guess what he told me? He said that was the best tasting cooking oil he's ever had. Now, if that wouldn't make any food and drug enforcement officer blush, I don't know what would. But there is a different kind. We had black peanuts, white peanuts, large jumbo reds, and other reds as well. And there's the machine. We made so much money off of we had so many farmers wanting, like cows and dogs. They just love this peanut expeller. And in fact, I would just eat it right as it came off the press. Like everything is there except the oil, and who needs the fat, right? No, we all fat enough anyway. So, but all the nutrients were there. Like if you want to feed a child a breakfast that is healthy, that is it right there. Okay, I got 2 minutes. So we drained off the oil. We did another project, which is the Flour of Jamaica, which was another total failure. We had the red kind, we had the purple kind. We made pies out of the leaves. We called it the billy goat grass pie. The red pie was like a substitute for rhubarb. And then we also had the purple. The purple is used for food coloring as well. It is like extremely. We had a lot of fun figuring out how to take the seeds out. We had a rotisserie, and all of a sudden it dawned on me, the rotisserie goes slow enough, and we'll just put these little stainless steel pipes on it with teeth, and we can take the seeds out. And even this little boy here, he enjoyed just popping the seeds out. It was very easy. You just took a hold of it, had your little finger in the bottom, you just push it across, push your finger up, pop the seed back off, and you could just do that really fast. Well, if you read the article, you'll know why that whole system went bankrupt. We put together a 100-foot silage bag solar dryer, works well. We did the lemongrass. With that German importer, he was determined that we're going to fill sea container after sea container of all this stuff, because this is all good stuff on the world market. And we planned it. We did exactly how I wanted it. We went through the whole. We processed the lemongrass. We made a little machine to cut it off. We made the dryers. We made just the whole. We had these little shelves on rollers. We dried it. We made paper cutter to cut these up because the Germans wanted it in little, and they did not want it cut on a chopper because that frazzles the ends and you lose the aroma. We sorted it, we put it into bales, and we hauled it off. Guess what? None of those projects survived. Now, I think I have 1 minute left, right? So this is a current project that we're working on. Now, I don't know why the computer locked up here. Okay, so this is where ASAL is taking just a little bit, like I mentioned yesterday, we're coming from the top down. Like, the biggest question, not all the projects, I think it was around 7 projects that I did, not one of them stuck. And the man that helped me the most, he was just kind of like me, he just loved doing projects. Guess what he ended up doing? He's a baker. He started a bakery, and he does well at the bakery. And all of these projects, even though he was involved from the very beginning, saw all the steps all the way through. And then obviously we knew that any of that technology could be updated. Like we can get a tractor to plant the peanuts, like we can get a regular thrash machine, like we can get a commercial sheller, we can get a commercial peanut butter grinder, like we can scale that up. He's a baker today. Do I feel like I got gypped out of doing all these projects, the 7 or 8 projects that we did, and not one of them stuck? And that's going to be one of my questions. Okay, so ASAL takes a little bit. So here's a man, he had an interest in pineapple. When he came to us, everything was in disarray. So the first thing that ASAL did is we helped him get it organized. Now, can anyone guess who this person is? That's his oldest son. Who do you think is going to take on the pineapple project? ASAL has come to the conclusion that we have to have a 100-year vision. Now that means it's going to take 3 generations to change a culture. He got his 32 hectares in and organized. Yeah, it has a freeze here. I think I overloaded my memory or something here. So what we helped him to do, he has this all on a rotating basis. So he's doing 20,000 plants a week, and he has it all on a rotating. So we got all his financials, we got all his program in place. Last week I was in Florida, and we're figuring out a way how to export all of his pineapples up here. But we want him to process it down there. So the first step is to freeze it down there, and he's planning on. Letting them plant right, because a pineapple that is plant ripened is way more, has a lot better flavor. I think my time is up, isn't it? So yeah, and it's stuck. I had just a few other pictures, but the whole thing behind it is the person that you help, who is going to be the next person that's going to take on the project. And that is one reason why so many, or I feel why so many of my projects has failed, because the person that was doing it and the person that's going to continue on. When I left, guess what? All the projects that I did left with me.